All right, I am the artist known here at SOM Live as Bronson Garrett, and this is the SOM Live podcast. We're going to be doing things a little bit different here. We're not going to yell at you and tell you how bad you suck and how you should buy a ticket or anything like that. We're really going to get down to the meat and potatoes, as people say, whatever the hell that means, and get to know some of these guys here on a personal level, get to know what got them into wrestling, get to know a little bit more about the characters and the gimmicks that they portray here on SOM Live each and every week. And I'm sitting here right now with Jeff Miller, the metalhead himself, the artist known as Jason Blythe. What the hell's going on, dude?
Nothing much, just living life a day at a time, enjoying it, man.
So I guess we'll kind of start from the beginning on this thing.
Right.
Wrestling. What got you into wrestling? Were you an athlete growing up?
Yeah.
And what kind of led you to your destination here at the School of Morton?
Yeah, I was an athlete, So I started out when I was about 4, playing t-ball, and then basketball and football. Mm-hmm. But the only one I really stuck with up until high school was football, just because I enjoyed it the most. Built a great bond, got me some friends, That kind of portrays into wrestling a little bit, because I got to hit people.
It's kind of a natural progression for the most part.
Yeah. I was never quite the best in high school. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, not compared to the guys I was up against for positions. But, I still had a lot of fun doing it, got in better shape.
You've got some good size and you hit hard. I know that from experience in another life. But
it definitely is a challenge, and I like a good challenge. And I feel that football helped me take challenges on better.
What position did you play?
I played offense and defensive line. I played mainly left tackle on offense and just whatever tackle they need me at on defense.
Left side, the strong side tackle. So you must have not been that bad to have been put in that position.
I was fast. See, the thing is, I realized, with how big these guys are, when it comes to brute strength, they're probably going to have me beat.
Oh, yeah.
But see, they're also 6'3", 340 pounds.
Where'd you play at?
I played at Danielton High School.
Okay. So y'all are, what are you? I played in Virginia.
I don't even know, to be honest. I just played.
Is it a D3, D4?
Something like that.
They play some good schools, though, so it's not like you were playing a bunch of scrubs from the East Tennessee School of the Deaf and Blind or anything like that.
No, we're not playing like
no
North
offense.
Green. They're a smaller school. We're playing more, like we play Science Hill, but they're not quite in our division. We play DB. They're not quite. It's like Elizabeth and Crockett.
So powerhouses in and around the area, absolutely.
Definitely.
So you weren't playing, like I said, the knockover, the jabroni teams here in the area.
No, if we did, I probably would have got more playing time, to be honest. But
See, I was a tight end and an outside linebacker, believe it or not. I've lost a little bit of weight since then, but I was also crazy, so I could come through on blocks.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how I was, because I knew that I wasn't the best, So, if I got a chance to be in, I wasn't really in there just to be in there and necessarily even do my job. Just I wanted to get a big hit just so I say, yeah, I knocked the hell out of it. So
oh, yeah.
A lot of times I just throw my body into the wind and just hit them. I never really cared about the injury. I just wanted to look good for once.
You still follow football?
Yeah, I still watch college and pros. I still go to Boone and watch some of the games, talk to the boys and coaches.
Who are you a fan of?
In the pros, I like the Cowboys. Yeah,
moving on to college. Who are we a fan of in college?
It's not any better, but I'm a UT fan.
University of Texas?
Oh no, because I'm from here. I like the Cowboys mainly because of Jason Witten being from Elizabeth, so I started following him, going to his camps.
I have a lot of respect for Witten. I mean, who doesn't, especially around this area?
Oh, yeah, especially for his age now, he's getting older, he retired for that one season. He said, nah,
So you said you went to the Witten camps. Did you ever get any one-on-one with Witten at all? Or?
Not really. I mean, I was only like 12 or 13 when I went.
Was he physically there, though?
Yeah, he was there, like I got to meet him, but nothing too fancy,
So that's something, though. I mean, at least you can say that you had a little, even if it was just a minimal amount, you had football training from somebody that's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, it's just like being here, with Ricky, and then, we got Crazy Steve that comes here. We've had Kid Cash come in here. We've had all kinds of guys. Bobby, Eaton. We have so many legendary guys that are coming in here giving us tips and trying to do what they can do to help us further ourselves in this career.
Yeah, I mean, in the short time, we've been here relatively around the same amount of time. I think I may have 6 months to a year on you, if that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at some of the guys just in our time, not counting before that's been here that we've gotten. Who, Kane, was it? Were you here when Kane came?
I came right after he was here.
Okay. How about Jimmy Golden? Were you here with him?
Not with him. I wasn't here with Animal. But
Go back and watch some of Jimmy Golden's stuff when he was Bunkhouse Buck in WCW.
Yeah.
You can find some of his stuff in Smoky Mountain, even before that. One of the most underrated workers of all time, in my opinion. The guy was just a tremendous heel, especially around here.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So segueing off into that, what got you into wrestling? Like, who were you a fan of growing up? What brought you here, per se?
What brought me here? I mean, I started watching it when I was about 5, flipping through the TV.
Oh, yeah.
My dad used to be a wrestling fan. He said that actually when they had me, he stopped watching it so I wouldn't be influenced by it. If you're watching this, Dad, that plan didn't work out too well.
And here you are.
Yeah,
So.
And I'm really enjoying doing what I do. I really do. But who I first started watching was, or being a fan of, was the Boogeyman. More for look purposes. He just looked crazy. His character was, what pro wrestling should be, man. You know?
That's an interesting one to be. Most people, I would think, would say Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart.
Oh, well, of course.
The go-to answers.
Me, so.
I'm not going to date myself too much on that, but Bret Hart was during me. But you said the Boogeyman, and that kind of comes off. You have the metal gimmick, which, right. I mean, that's your lifestyle as well.
It is.
But, I mean, the Boogeyman is, I mean, that was a very metal look for 2004, 2005.
Oh, yeah,
when
definitely.
he was at the top of it.
Yeah. I mean, the eating worms thing. I'm not going to go quite that far, or come out with a severed goat head or pig's head or nothing. But
it'd be very interesting if you did, though.
I mean, I've considered stuff like that. But I'm death metal, not black metal. So that kind of crosses into another subgenre. But
so let's get to the metal aspect of it, and then we'll kind of round this thing back out into the wrestling. Right. So Jason Blythe is the name, and I'm assuming Blythe comes from Randy, lead singer of Lamb of God. I'm a little bit smarter than most of you would think that I am. Music plays a big part in mine and Chad's gimmick as well as Judas, and I mean that is your character is metal. So we know Blythe comes from Randy. Where does the Jason come from?
It comes from my father. Yeah, I wanted to keep the J. And I started there like, well, you can't use Jeff Miller because we've already got Jeff. When the Castros were here, and then we've already got Hank when he was here, so you can't use that. So I figured I'd keep the J, go with Jason, and then I didn't know what to use as a last name. I wanted it to be something that you don't hear all the time, and that if I ever was to make it anywhere, if they looked me up,
stands out.
Yeah, So I was watching Loudwire on YouTube, and they were doing an interview with Randy Blythe, and it was a Fact or Fiction. It said his name, so that's a weird name. And I said, Jason.
You ever seen Lamb live?
Yes, I have, actually. Exit 111 just this past October.
Oh, wow. I didn't get to go to that, but I would have loved to have seen them live again. I seen them at Ozfest in 2004.
See, I'd love to go to something like that, just it's a bit of ways,
Yeah. In 2004, what were you, 3, 4 at the time? So
yeah, 3 going on 4.
That'd have been a very interesting time for you to have been at Ozfest.
I probably wouldn't remember it or lived through it. I don't know.
So as far as metal, who else are you into besides obviously Lamb? You're a metalhead, so.
Man, I could sit here and talk to you this whole time about the bands I'm into and why. But, you know, it starts back at the beginning, as anything does, you know. So when I was about 3, 4, maybe 5, you know, my dad got me into Ozzy, you know. Not necessarily
fucking
Black
love
Sabbath,
Ozzy,
but
dude.
Ozzy. So, you know, I love the songs like Mr. Crowley, Crazy Train Chorus, Bark at the Moon.
Bark at the
I'm
Moon's a
Coming
great
Home.
album as a standalone.
It
too,
is,
so.
it really is. And I mean, he, even now, is still going pretty strong with it. He can't talk at all, but he can still sing pretty well.
I seen Ozzy in San Antonio in 2011, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah?
And he was still kicking ass, man.
He's had like 4 farewell tours. I think he just forgets about each one after he finishes it. So he goes and does another one. I'm jealous of whoever got to see Black Sabbath on that final tour, because I don't have that chance now.
Yeah, I would have
I
loved
really
to
wish
have seen
I
that
could
as
have
well.
got to do that, but
Who else besides Ozzy and Lamb, you said? Like, who are some other people that Jeff Miller's into? If you were to pull up Jeff Miller's Spotify, who would I find on there?
now I'd probably get a little bit of judgment looking at some of the song titles and the song names. I mean, the band names. But, like, I love the extreme stuff. Like, I love Impending Doom. They're a Christian deathcore slam
I've
band.
never listened to Impending Doom.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they're not quite everybody's cup of tea, which I understand that. But, you know, I love them. I love Campbell Corpse, Visceral Disgorge, Disentomb, Aborted, Dying Fetus. You know, it just goes on and on. You know, like I got Campbell Corpse here, Autopsy, Amon Amarth, Exodus. You know, down at the bottom we got Black Sabbath. Then I got Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Pantera. You know, I just love.
So you just sewed on all the bands that you're into. I see Slayer on there. I'm a huge Slayer fan myself. So
yeah, it's not quite done at all. You know, I want this thing to be packed full by the time I'm done. And on the back I got Cattle Decap for my back patch, Obituary.
I love Obituary too. So I was kind of, just to put out a little bit about me, when I was in middle school and high school in the early 2000s, if you want to go back and do the math, I was the kid that most people were probably like, man, who are these weird guys that he has on his shirt? I was wearing Slipknot shirts, Korn shirts. I think I had a Cradle of Filth shirt back then. Are those anything? Because I know Corey Taylor, for me, is somebody who influences a lot of what I do as far as the artistry of wrestling is concerned.
Well, you know, he is a big wrestling fan from what I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, yeah, I love Slipknot. I love definitely the visuals. And, you know, I'm not really into, like, the new metal thing. I'm not quite into Korn or Limp Bizkit as much, but, you know, like, Slipknot with the I.O. album and All Hope Is Gone. You know,
Iowa was probably one of the greatest albums of all time, in my
Iowa
opinion.
was my segue into death metal.
Really?
Well, I mean, you listen to how heavy it was, and it's just not like any other Slipknot album. You know, they tried to make this newest album like that.
I was not a fan of the new stuff, man.
I'm not super into it. More so because they hyped it up so much. They said it's going to be like a second Iowa. So, you know, I expected really heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like, borderline, like, grindcore-ish, you know, like it grinds in some parts. I was like, man, you know, like that's not really new metal. But maybe that's why I like it so much.
See, my age frame, new metal had kind of kicked off. So, 10th grade me loved new metal. Disturbed,
Well,
Korn,
you know,
Limp Bizkit.
you also had MTV when it was also music, and that's what
That's true as well.
That's what they actually played. You know, like I like to go back and watch old episodes of Headbangers Ball. You know,
Loved him. With Ricky Rackman.
Scott Egan too. You know, when
Yep.
he was on there.
Ricky Rackman was actually a commentator in WCW for a little bit in its dying days. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. You know, there's a lot of like wrestlers and you know people in the wrestling business. They're also in the middle, and I feel like that's another reason I feel I fit in so much. You know, like I can actually find people that like it. You know, mostly it is the classics. You know, not everyone's into Dying Fetus and Visceral Discord. Listen to a band name like that, it's probably going to turn some people away.
And it's a lot like wrestling though. I mean, it is a very subjective. Everybody kind of has their own opinion on what they think great music is. The same with wrestling.
Yeah.
So it kind of ties hand in hand.
Well, metal also has a bunch of different styles, just like wrestling does.
Absolutely.
You got your lucha style, you got your Japanese style, you got your classic style, you got your brawler style, you got in metal, you got the death metal, the metalcore, the classic metal, hard rock, heavy metal, stoner metal, speed metal, doom metal.
Don't forget hair metal.
Oh, I'm trying to. I'm working on forgetting that. I like some hair metal, like Scorpions. You know,
I've actually seen Scorpions live too. It was their farewell tour. I seen Scorpions' farewell tour, Motley Crue's farewell tour.
Farewell.
So hair metal kind of plays a big part into my
Motley Crue
past.
too,
I love the Crew. Have you seen the movie on Netflix?
Nah, I just feel like I'm not really getting like what actually happened. I'm getting the Hollywood's version of what happened, so I
That's
just
a
don't
lot
like
of what
trust
it
it. But like, yeah, like I like some of that stuff. Steel Panther. Have you listened to them?
They're more like, it's like a spoof hair metal
it is.
band.
That's probably why I like them. I think it's funny. I love bands that kind of have like a joke side to them. Like they're not fully serious, but they can still be good. Like I listen to a band called the Forrest Gump Mile High Marathon.
I have never heard of them, but I'll have to check them out.
They've only got one album. It's Slam, so it's like the heaviest you can go.
Oh yeah.
It's toned down to drop A. The strings are flapping. You won't understand a word of it. But it starts off with clips of the movie. Like the song names are like "Stupid Is, Stupid Does."
No shit.
Lieutenant Dan ... Ice Cream. New Legs, Magic Legs, or something like that. So I love the movie too. So maybe that's why I'm into them. But that Bro Job, they're pretty funny stuff.
And these are just spoofs of
they're just like as a joke, And that's another style of metal too. Like you can have your serious bands, your atheist bands, Christian bands, Satanist bands. Everyone's got to say patriotic bands like Five Finger Death Punch.
Yep.
Everybody's got their own sound and their own way of putting out their political messages or whatever. I just think that's really cool to have that freedom in a genre of music, and that's the only genre of music I feel that has that freedom.
I think, isn't Under Oath a Christian metal band?
At least
they
were.
used to be. I seen them years ago, but
I don't really listen to Under Oath. I more so listen to the Caveman Slams. I don't know. I just want something that, I just anger, and that hatred, just kind of helps me with.
I think I heard them on one of those. MTV put out some like a collection of albums back in my time when I was really into metal, like 04, 05. And it was MTV's Return of the Rock.
Yeah.
And then they had a Headbangers Ball album, and then that's where you had your bands like Lamb. That's where I discovered Shadows Fall at, was off of one of those. And I don't know if you can find them on Spotify or anything, but it was a lot of those.
Oh, if it's on the internet, I can find it.
I'm sure you probably could.
There's a lot of stuff on the internet when it comes to bands.
And then as far as spoof metal goes, I don't know. I know Bam Margera plays a big role into what I do as a character.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched Jackass or the CKY. CKY is actually a really good band, but it's his brother's the drummer. They had a spoof band called Narkill that Brandon D. Camillo did the vocals for that you can find on Spotify. Some funny shit.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. The only Jackass guy I've heard an album by is Steve-O, that rap album he did.
I never heard Steve-O's stuff.
It's all a big joke, but it's really funny. It's worth listening to. I listened to him in a podcast talking about it, and he said that what he did was he put together a movie that was basically going to be like the scary movies, just a satire of a bunch of different things. And he said he took it to MTV and said they hate it, every bit. They hate it except for the part where he was making fun of Cribs, MTV Cribs, whatever.
Yeah, I remember Cribs.
Yeah, where he was making fun of it. So, he was like a rapper, white guy, and he had like the worst album. And that was the joke. And they actually liked it, and told him, said, we want you to finish this album and record it.
And that was supposed to be a movie.
Album. Yeah, it was taken out of what was supposed to be a movie.
That's crazy because I know Bam and his little crew that did Viva La Bam, they did Haggard. And I don't know if you ever seen Haggard.
No,
it was a rom-com with Ryan Dunn as the star of it. And it's some funny shit, dude.
I thought you were talking about Merle Haggard.
No, the name of the movie was Haggard, which I have no idea what it means, and I'm a Bam mark. But it was a romantic comedy with Ryan Dunn and Bam's girlfriend as the stars of it. And that's where Narkill came from.
They like country music because, I've watched all the Jackass movies. Yeah. They've used stuff like Don't Roller Skate in the Buffalo Herd.
It could have been from Merle Haggard's where the name
Johnny
came.
Knoxville, he's from Knoxville.
Yeah.
And, being from that area, he's probably going to hear a country song once or twice.
And country has a lot of influence on metal to a point. Johnny Cash was about as metal as they get, man.
If you listen to which one? like Hurt's not his, but I think that's
Those
the best
9
version.
Inch Nails. I
That's
remember that
9
when I was a
Nails.
kid. Yeah.
But like I think his spin-off of it was probably the best, more so because he was getting old, he was about to die, you know, it just added to the feeling of it. But that and Ain't No Grave.
Have you ever heard Rusty Cage, which is a Soundgarden?
No, I don't think I've
cover.
heard him do it.
Yeah, Rusty Cage by Johnny Cash is really good. Because
Yeah.
Soundgarden's version was good too, but I mean Johnny Cash's was, I mean, that's a pretty badass album, man.
Really? I'm gonna check that out. But like, yeah, I love Johnny Cash. I've always liked him. I mean, I'm from this area, so I'm gonna like country music a little
Oh yeah,
bit.
I mean you have to.
I didn't want to put that out there into the public, but you know what? Screw it. I like a little bit of country music. You know, definitely the old stuff like Keith Whitley and Merle Haggard. I love Merle Haggard. Charlie Daniels Band. I love some bluegrass.
That's really cool you threw out Keith Whitley because I'm a Keith Whitley fan too, like the older style of country.
Right.
And probably the most underrated country musician of all time is Keith Whitley, in my opinion.
He's definitely underrated for what he was, you know, and that's who I like learned how to play guitar for, you know,
Really?
off of, I guess, you know. I loved his songs. They were pretty simple to play, but you know, also, you know, I'm in high school or about to hit high school. I'm like, girls like a guy who plays guitar.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It never works for me.
we all get into music or sports for chicks. I mean, that's the segue.
Yeah,
into
I mean,
it.
you know, I did sports. I didn't play much, but I got to wear the jersey on Friday. So they're like, "Oh, so you play football?" I said, "No, I just found it hanging in the locker room." Put it on. So I've had guys come to me. I'll be talking to some girl, and some of the guys on the team would walk up behind me and say, "Yeah," so he's playing tonight. I said, "Yeah, I am."
That's some
They
good
say, "Why don't you
wingmen
tell-"
there,
Oh, dude,
man.
they're pretty cool. I mean, they'd be like, so tell them what your number is. And I'd be like, "Yeah, so I'm number 54, which was actually one of them that was playing. It was like linebacker. I'm like, so yeah, you'll see me out there.
That's a hell of a
You'll see me.
wingman.
Oh yeah, you know, I pretty much talk to everybody. You know,
I guess that's a hell of a whole lot easier than I used to use it. I was related to Brad Pitt at bars. I mean, we've all bullshitted to try to get chicks. So.
well, see, I take my guitar to school too because I had a guitar class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, I was pretty advanced before I got into the class, but you
Yeah.
know, the class really helped me with like scales and stuff like that. So you know,
I
girls
don't
would
know
love
if we
to see
had
me pull out. Like I had the Razorback tattooed on me.
even back then.
No.
Oh, I thought
No. I got this when I was 18.
I was like, that's about to be a whole different podcast of Jeff Miller's backlot guitar tattoo he got in high school.
Man, this one, you know, I got when I was 18, and I actually had this guitar right before I started training here.
Really?
You know, it was an awesome guitar. You know, it had some of the best drive. I'm a huge Dime fan, Pantera, so I'm like, I have to have this guitar. But you know, I really had to think. I'm like, what do I always want to do? What do I think about doing the most? And it came down to wrestling. So I ended up selling it to start getting more money and coming here.
You know what's crazy is going back to Dime, and this is, I still remember where I was at when I found out that he passed away. Because going back to music, one of my best friends when I was stationed in Turkey, Jimmy McKenna, if you're out there listening, he was in a band, Hostile Ground, which was, I guess, just an indie band in Boston. Yeah. And we were sitting in the barracks actually listening to Damage Plan when...
They're so underrated for what they are, too.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
They weren't around long enough to make it to, like, Pantera's level, but they were definitely well on their way.
They were really good. But I remember sitting in the barracks listening to that when back in the days of dial-up internet. We were trying to download songs off of probably LimeWire, BearShare.
Man,
Please
by the time
don't
it
come
came
after
up,
me.
you probably forgot what you were about to listen to.
That's probably a fact. And we still had CDs back then, too.
Oh, I still buy CDs, man. I still buy CDs.
I don't even know where to get them at. So.
I go to FYE at the mall, but see, like,
You
the
go to
metal
Mr.
section-
K's and get used shit.
Metal section just, well, it used to be all the way out here, and now I go there and it's all the way down here. And
Yeah.
it's metal, but like they don't have like half the bands I listen to. So, you know, like the last CD I bought was from my friend's band, their EP for Blighted. They're out of here in Johnson City.
I haven't heard of them. I'll have to check those guys out,
I
too.
mean, they're local. You gotta support your local wrestling and local metal. I think, you know, any local music.
Oh,
really. Any local art.
Porno Arcade.
I went and watched Ted. I've seen him.
What'd you think? What'd you think of the show?
I'm not a huge punk fan, but I loved it. I mean, we see what he does here. You know, he's
Yeah.
a natural performer.
And
Really is.
a lot of that has the influence that crosses over to the ring, like I was saying. And I hope Jimmy's listening to this because I'm putting him over. A lot of the screaming and stuff that I do, A lot of the faces comes from Jimmy, who actually lost his leg in a motorcycle accident this year. And then he played a metal show like a week later, which is probably one of the most metal things to do after losing your leg.
Man, I mean, metal is just the genre. That's what I think. It's just the genre to be around. And, you know, my family, none of them are into it.
Oh,
My dad's like Slayer, but that's about it. You know, like that's as heavy as it'll go. So, you know, I had to find all this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. Well, my friend that was in the death metal band out here,
Yeah.
he's the one that got me into it. He let me listen to Cannibal Corpse the first time, and it was Mummified in Barbed Wire off the, I think it was the Vile album. So they still like Chris Barnes, so it sounded a little bit different what they do.
I know who you're talking about.
But like, I would listen to it, I was like, what is this? You know, like, I don't know if I like it. And then slowly, as I started progressing, I figured out that it was an acquired taste, and I acquired it really hard once I hit about sophomore year of high school. You know, like I'd listen to nothing but their albums on repeat.
That seems to be the time that we get our acquired music taste, because that's when
That's when you
got
start to
really into it.
understand stuff a little bit more, you know, being the
Yeah.
high school age. So, you know, you look into it a little bit more, and, you know, it's not just noise at that point. You know, it's not just your parents' influence of what they listen to that you're around.
That's
listening
true.
to. So, you know, you get to be out there and kind of find yourself. You know, and that's just what I found. And, you know, I'd get the same looks in school. You know, I'd wear my Scourge shirt. People could hardly read it, but that's like a black and death metal band that's actually Phil Anselmo from Pantera. That's one of his 30
I didn't
side
know
projects.
that. Yeah, he has quite a few.
Yeah, you know, you got Philip H. Anselmo, the Illegals. Now you have Scour, you have Super Joint Ritual. I like them.
I love Superjoint. Actually, Hank Williams III was the basis
yeah.
for Superjoint for
I like
quite
Hank
a while.
Williams III. You know, I fully respect him, you know, because he's not trying to, like, live off his last name.
Yeah, he's doing his own thing.
And that's the whole
completely.
point. Have you heard this song, 3 Shades of Black?
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what
a
it's
big
about.
Hank III
Yeah.
fan. Yeah.
So, you know, like, I bought his Damn Right Rebel Proud album.
Yeah.
You know, I said, I gotta get it. I said, just, you know, he's just fully different. It's like if Hank Williams Sr. was into metal.
He
And
sounds
he
like
looks
Hank
him,
Sr..
too.
Yeah.
Looks and sounds just like him, and it's a really cool time period for rock and metal music right now.
And in fact, that's kind of funny that we went there, because when I was doing the country music gimmick for a while, because I thought it would just get nuclear heat, which it did.
Yes,
But then
it
when I
did.
teamed up with Chad, which was kind of on a whim as it was, he was like, instead of doing the Luke Bryan, Florida Georgia Line bro country thing, he's like, man, you remind me a lot of Hank III. He's like, so if you scale back and kind of put some of that into your gimmick. So that's why him and Nick 13 from Tiger Army
Yeah.
are a lot of where I drew kind of the visuals of my gimmick from, which is cool. We went there, but
Yeah, I mean, I love that kind of music. The outlaw rock, you know.
yeah.
Like, screw off. I'm going to make music the way I want to,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of what my last name is.
And those
or
guys
my
have
daddy
been
is.
for years, man. That's awesome.
You know, Shooter Jennings.
Yep,
You know,
I love Shooter.
like guys like that, you know, I really respect, because they could make it big. You know, they could do what their daddies did. They could ride off that or whatever.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
they could be
but
on
they
radio
don't.
right now.
They could, but they don't. They do their own thing, what they want to do, and that's what makes them happy, and they still make a good amount of money doing it.
Oh,
So I fully respect that.
so for the people that's still here after our metal deep dive that we just went on, let's go back to wrestling while we're however much
wrestling
longer we
podcast.
go. Yeah. So you had told me earlier that your mom used to babysit Terry Gordy when he was a child.
Not him, but his kids.
Oh, his
Because, you know,
kid.
he'd do a lot of wrestling over in Japan, and that's when he was getting really into, like, the deathmatch wrestling over there.
I remember
like,
that
in
with
the mid-90s.
Mick Foley. He was in
Yeah.
the deathmatch tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that match.
So did she babysit Miranda? Because I know Miranda's
I'm
in
not
the
sure
business
exactly.
now too. His daughter.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask her, but she said she used to babysit his kids, and she knew his wife, and, you know, said that they were really good people.
That's
Really were.
awesome, man. So are you a big Freebirds fan? Like, you kind of remind me of Terry, like your working style a little bit.
Well, it could just be that I'm from that area.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So
a
you
lot of
all look
people-
alike over in the area that you're from? or
Not
is-
all looking alike, but, you know, like, you know, I try to hide my draw, but, you know, it's kind of hard to, you know, being from that area.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I feel like a lot of the best heels in wrestling are the ones with the deep southern draw. I feel like
It's a
Dick
valid
Murdoch,
point.
you know,
It's a-
like, you just take it more seriously when they've got a southern accent, you know.
That's a very valid point. Cornette.
Yeah. Just, that's why I love, like, the NWA stuff. like a lot of it is Southern guys. You know, with
Yeah,
our
for-
trainer Ricky being on there, you know, with the way he is. And then you got the Murdoch. You've got Jim Cornette, like you said. Dusty Rhodes. Even
Bobby
with the
Eaton
lisp,
and-
you still took that guy seriously.
Bobby Eaton, if he was ever allowed to talk.
Yeah. But, you know, when you got a mouthpiece like Jim Cornette,
Yeah,
you ain't
you
really
don't-
got to do too much. You just got to let him do his thing.
So is that what you go back and study a lot of? Is the NWA, the Crockett territory,
That's
Georgia
what I've been
territory?
getting more back into. You know, like I think wrestling needs to evolve, but it doesn't need to evolve so much that we forget the forgotten art of even like just chain wrestling and doing stuff like we learned here. You know, because that's what made them their money. That's what helped get wrestling to where it is now. You know, you're not going to see me doing a 450 splash or doing anything like that because, you know, as a heel, I don't have to do that. As a big guy too, you know.
Yeah, why would you? I mean, it's impressive, and I've seen you in training. You can,
I probably could.
but why do it and waste those bumps on that bump card?
Yeah, there's no need to do it. I mean, for smaller guys, I think they should do it because it'll help get them over. So that's why I've been studying a lot of the new stuff too, because, you know, it just all kind of circulates back around. Like
Who are you watching a lot of new that's on TV right now?
AEW. Neil, if it comes to new guys, I watch AEW. I study MJF and honestly Sammy Guevara.
Sammy Guevara is great. I actually met Sammy in San Antonio. He's actually a great guy too. I hope I'm
Yeah.
not killing his gimmick on this show, but Sammy's great. I think MJF's probably the best heel in the business right
When
now.
it comes to a mouthpiece, definitely.
Yeah.
And he looks great. You saw the thing he did with Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah.
You know, like that stuff's pretty cool. You know,
Dallas looked
and
great,
they really
too.
pushed the envelope. Well, he does his own yoga, so he's gonna look.
That's
good.
true. I do DDP yoga as well, so a shameless plug there to put on this show.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with doing some yoga. Something to keep you in shape.
At my age, if I didn't, and some of the bumps that I've taken, especially since me and Chad have been working the dualies, and then in the route that we are, I would probably be out of the wrestling business.
I mean, that's another thing. It's funny you mentioned the back. You know, I had a back injury when I played football.
Really?
I wasn't playing, I was working out. So anybody listening that's doing weightlifting, you need to, you know, work a lot on technique, not just lifting a bunch of weight off the ground. Technique is everything.
And that's what a lot of guys get lost on, is the fact that they think they can go pick up heavy weight and look like Lex Luger in a week, and that's not the case. Guys
No,
like
they
me and
do
you
that.
don't have the genetics to do
No.
that.
No, like those guys work out twice a day, train doing this in between, do a show, then they go train again, you know? So like they're gonna be big, but they also eat right, they also, you know, work on their technique. And you know, that was what hurt me. Squatting, just took one squat, it was only like 225 pounds. I was a freshman. I was about to start the sophomore season.
Really?
And, you know, I went down, my legs straightened out first, I pulled the rest of them on my lower back.
Holy
and it
shit.
threw it.
So it's basically like a deadlift gone wrong.
Pretty much, I mean, it was just all around bad, man. You know, so, you know, they said it wasn't anything that was going to hinder me in life. They said, but it is going to be painful from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I played that sophomore season with it. I played my junior season with it. I stopped before my senior season because I'm like, I didn't get much playing time. I would have got a lot more since all those guys who I was up against, they all went off to college and played. So, you know, it didn't make me feel bad. I'm like, you know, like I could still hang with them. So I knew I'd be a good player if I had the opportunity to show out my senior year. But, you know, I started having reoccurring dreams, you know, of, like actual dreams when I was asleep of doing this. And, you know, it just made me think, like, football, I don't want to go anywhere with football. I don't want to keep playing in college or nothing, so I'm just wasting my time. So I figured I might as well stop while I'm ahead before I hurt myself even more and focus on working, saving up money. And that's when I found out about this place, you know.
What
Work,
brought
save
you
money.
here? How did you find out about it? Were you just...
Youth pastor.
Really?
Yeah, he's a huge wrestling fan.
You want to give him a plug?
Nah, he don't want me to
Okay.
Nah, he don't.
But that's kind of
Probably not.
interesting that your youth pastors who put you on to come here and then ultimately led to...
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll do it. His name's Adam McLeod. I don't know if he looks at some of our stuff. You know, he knows me. He watches for me, I guess. So it'd be nice for him to see this and know that he's pretty much the reason I found out about a place like this, you know. It's not going to cost me an arm and a leg.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and also I get to continue training that. It's not like a 6 week, 6 months or something program, and then, you know, you're handed a piece of paper and say, go get booked somewhere.
Yep.
You know, so we have a good show here.
And that's
Been
what's
on
great
TV.
about this place.
Yeah, we're all over YouTube, Facebook, you know, doing all this stuff. It's just a really great platform to be on.
And it is, and we're kind of allowed the free reins to kind of do with what we want,
Yes.
character-wise.
Yeah, non-scripted promos. We get to
Yep.
say what we want. And, you know, we get to really push the envelope with those. That's another reason I like AEW, because they're saying stuff.
And if you
wordy
listen to
dirty,
Jericho,
and,
that's
yeah,
what he says too.
They
Is
push it.
they're
Like-
allowed to just go out and do whatever they want to, which is kind of what
That's
we do
great.
here. I mean, I've changed gimmicks probably 12 times in the last 2 years, but it's getting that feel for it, finding what works, and we're allowed to do that here as opposed to other
Right,
places that
definitely.
would be, hey, Jeff Miller, you're going to be a clown gimmick. Go do the best you can with it.
Not gonna lie, I think I'd have fun doing that. But
I could
you
see
know,
that, actually.
You know, like we were talking earlier about the stand-up comedian gimmick. Be a good jobber, heel gimmick. Nobody likes him. He comes out here and he brings out a bar stool, sits in the middle of the ring. He starts doing knock-knock jokes that just aren't funny, puns, you know, stuff that people don't really find funny. But
Maybe
it's funny
his
in the sense
gimmicks
of
he
that's
brings
what
out
did.
like a Gallagher or a Carrot Top. That'd be
Yeah.
some good heat.
Yeah, like prop comedy, you know, like pull all that stuff out, and then somebody
is
comes
so
out and
damn
whoops his
douchey.
ass, you know, and it's funny. I mean, I think that'd be an awesome gimmick to do. I mean, there's
I
a
could
lot of
see
stuff we
that.
could do like that. It's not just about having Speedo tights and kick pads, man. You know, wrestling has always been about characters and gimmicks and just storylines and entertainment. That's what it's always been about.
And that's what I feel that we have here. And I know Jimmy Valiant's worked a lot of shows with us, so you probably
Yes.
picked his brain as well as I have.
Of course.
He said you have to have the circus. So you
Yes.
have to have the acrobats, you have to have the clowns, you have to have the fat guys, you have to have all of these parts. That,
I
that-
can play
that make
all
the
three
show
of
go.
those roles.
So anything before we get off here, before we end it, I know we probably went longer than they would like us to on here. You have anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say? Any promos that you want to get? You're going to win the X Division title on February 9th at No Love Lost.
I mean, I'm gonna do what I can. Just gonna go out there, be myself, and do what it takes to win. But if I'm plugging anybody, I need to go back to the music for just a second and say that if anyone here is around the Johnson City area, you need to check out Blighted and just the local metal scene in general if you're into death metal, deathcore, punk rock for Chad's band.
Yeah.
You know, you just really need to check it out. They play a lot of times at the Hideaway. You come down there, $5. It's a full show, and I've never been to a bad one. So I just think that's where we can end it at.
So support
They
your
deserve
local
it.
metal, support your local wrestler,
Absolutely.
support SOM Live,
Yes.
and we'll catch you next time. Good shit.